What is going on, everybody? And welcome back to Meet the Critters podcast. We are episode 23. We got a fun one tonight. And I will admit this one is slightly selfish because this is for my own knowledge as well. But if I'm going to get the knowledge, you guys might as well get the knowledge as well. So we have an awesome customer of mine, Denise Carpenter, on tonight. And we are going to be chatting about Low Line Angus and kind of everything else she's raised, where she came from with it all and where she is now. So let's go ahead and bring Denise up. How's it going?
Going great.
Good. Yeah. Did you have a fun day today?
Yes, I did. I was removing siding, putting windows in, and putting siding back up. Yeah, it was an eventful day.
It's never a dull moment.
No, not on a farm, for sure.
No. So I said before we started, I was going to start with this, just a little about what's going on over here. I had a fun emergency slaughter today that was fairly interesting. I got a new customer a while back. I just did a bull for him last week that escaped, and we got a hold of, like, I had to go out and walk out and find it and drop it. And then today, as I'm getting the kids in the truck to get ready to the grocery store, I get a call. Hey, so that bull's out and there's no way I'm getting him back in. Is there any way you can just do this bull today? And I'm like, all right, well, this is going to get interesting. So I was very lucky. My mom was coming up to watch the kids so I could do some fencing. And I called her. I'm like, hey, change of plans. You're watching them because I need to go go up a mountain and find a bull. She's like, okay. So she gets here. We get everything figured out. I get everything loaded in the truck and I pull into his driveway and I'm like, so where are you guys? And he goes, well, I'm right up at my neighbor's house. It's bedded down right on the tree line. Like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, I'll come up there. I had my 30-06 and I was like, let's go hunting. And he goes, well, it's laying down right now. And my buddy has a shot on it. And I'm like, if you're confident with it, take it. Like, this is your animal. Like, it is what it is. It's one of those situations. I don't know how long it's going to take me to get right back up there. Like, just do it if he's laying down. And I didn't bring the truck up because I didn't want to, I didn't know where they were. So I didn't want to spook them driving the truck up. So I grabbed 30-06 and I start running up this hill. They are the first driveway on a class 6 road that's just up. So I run up the hill into the neighbor's driveway, which is a bigger hill. So I'm just huffing and puffing up this hill. And I crest just in time to just hear bang. And I'm like, all right, well, this is where it's going to get interesting because I'm waiting to hear thrashing of it running. And I'm like, now it's fun. Now it's going to be interesting. But to my surprise and my joy, he dropped it. It was a perfect 60-yard shot right behind the ear. And I was like, thank you, Christ, I didn't have to make this shot. It was not a fun one.
That's impressive.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was about 60 yards into the woods. We had to have another neighbor of ours. This guy lives local, and it's nice the community I've built moving into this town and being the butcher in the town, because I was able to be like, hey, I'm going up to so-and-so's house and I need the back front end loader up there because they have a small tractor and I'm not trying to get a cow in the back of the truck with that again. And within 5 minutes, they were running up the road with a front end loader, pulled it out. And I was like, thank God. But I should, if I had thought about it, I should have put the picture into the program so I could bring it up. I just got a picture of this bull hanging from a backhoe where I backed my truck in to drop it in the bed. But always a fun day. And as you know, as a customer, most of my slaughters are at this point kind of relaxed and
controlled.
Yeah, pretty controlled.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, we've gotten a pretty good system down. Because how many cows have I done for you? Like 4 at this point, or 3?
Yeah, 3, I believe. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that the one thing you learned farming, or in your case, I mean, you are a farmer and a butcher, you learn to be flexible and just adapt. And that's what you did today.
Yeah, and that's just it. And he texted me later tonight and was like, I can't thank you enough. I appreciate you figuring it out. And I texted him, I'm like, you're my customer. I want to keep you as a customer. This isn't like, you do get regular customers like yourself, but
Right.
it's one of those situations where you could very easily lose a customer just by being like, no, I'm not going to do that, or not making the time. And being a farmer now and realizing everything that goes into this, and they're not on anyone's time clock. They're on their own time clock, and they're going to do whatever they want.
Yes,
You
exactly.
got to be flexible. So
Definitely. I've through the years, I've had those events where, a pig prolapsed the rectum, or a cow had some hardware disease, and you need to take care of that animal then. And it's people like you that, we turn to, and it's well worth it to, have that available.
yeah, and I love it. And it's one of those situations where it's like I don't book myself out for a year at a time. That's partially because of just the way our life is scheduled right now, where my wife works at a hospital and we get her schedule every 6 weeks. It's
Right.
mostly the same, but I'm not going to book out that far. I'll write down your number and like you give me a call. I'm not going to go searching for the work. You call me if it's important. And it's also, there have been moments like very recently, like calling you and being like, hey, I have a bunch of openings. What do you
Yeah.
got?
And it worked perfect for me.
Yeah, exactly. So I have been doing all of your low lines. So, like I said at the beginning, this is kind of selfish for me because I am definitely interested in them going forward. Because we're getting out of beef for a little while. I need to recuperate a little bit from starting with beef over everything. So,
Right. Right.
tell us about low lines a little bit.
Well, so all my life, I grew up on the farm, and we had um, Herefords and milking shorthorns. So, we would we had 4 milking shorthorns that we would use, for the milk, but also we would have them handy and use them in the woods and things like that. But the Herefords were basically for the beef.
Right.
And I continued with the Herefords and found that things were going well until one year where I ended up with the out of 10 calves, I had to pull 7.
Yeah.
Heads were way too big. All the calves lived, but I do this alone. So I really needed to adjust the herd a little bit. And for many years, I was using a blonde Daquatine bull, and that helped because it was a much narrower head, easier calving. But I'm doing this alone, and I'm not a big woman, and I just need to be able to assist with births if they need to, or carry a calf. So a friend of mine for years had been talking to me about Low Line Angus, and I vowed I would never own an Angus because of the aggressive behavior that I had seen. And, she proved me wrong. And these low lines are nothing like that. And the birth weights are now, 45 to 65 pounds versus 85 to 100 pounds that I was experiencing,
Right.
with the other breeds. So they calve easily. I have, knock on wood, not needed to assist with any deliveries yet with the low lines. They have the vigor, so your calves grow fairly quickly.
Right.
And the temperament is amazing. So that's definitely, I was proved wrong with that. I will cull for conformation that's not appropriate or temperament that's not appropriate, but these guys are amazing. They really are.
I've been surprised on the temperament of them because, of course, I think because um, your friend Sue came to me first, and I
Yes.
started doing her low lines, and then I've started doing yours. And I think I've only had like one or two that have been like nasty.
Right.
And those were crosses. I forget what they were crossed with. But I've probably only had one or two that I'm like, oh, there's the Angus. Got it.
Yes.
Perfect.
I think that as they made the breed bigger in size,
Right.
they lost that mellow temperament, and this is an older breed. It, seems to work well for me, and I'm very happy with it. The genetics, they do well on grass. I'm totally grass fed, and they seem to have a good amount of marbling and tenderness, and I'm happy with that.
So I guess I didn't think about that. I think I overthought that. I thought that they bred the lowlines after. What you're saying is the lowlines are an older breed, and now well, I guess saying it out loud makes more complete sense that now they've bred the Angus as a bigger breed.
Yes. I think it's sort of what they've done with like the Morgan horses. Remember they were just barely larger than a pony, and now they're crossed with standard breds and bigger stature and things like that. I think it was in Australia. There was a study back in the 70s, I believe, where they kept the low lines, which now they've been renamed Aberdeen Angus, and they kept a herd of the smaller stature animals and a herd of the larger stature animals, which they had crossbred. And they found that, the smaller animals did very well on grass, but after the study was over, they were going to just, butcher the whole herd. And some of them got bought and brought to America. So, and of course, the larger animals, everybody wants a larger animal, that you want a quicker turnaround time. I think these animals mature a little bit later, like you might have to go the full 24 months versus 18 months. But like that animal you did the other day for me, that might have been 18 months old.
Yeah, that was a gorgeous animal. And I mean, up here, like raising beef in northern New England it's tough anyway. It doesn't matter. Like my beef I have in the field, he's going to be right around 18, 19 months when I put him in the cooler. Yeah, he's going to be, I'm hoping for about 650 to 700 hang. Mm-hmm. But it's like the amount I've put into that animal to get it to this weight in the same amount of time, where it's like, I definitely want to move my herd more towards, all right, if I'm going to be raising it out 18 to 19 months, I want to not put as much into it, but also at the same time have an animal that hangs at 350, 400 pounds, that they'll buy a whole beef. Like they're not just going to buy a half. It's going to be much easier for me to market these animals. Right. And you've seen our pastures, like we're going to expand all of that to the point where it's like, yeah, during the summer, I'm not touching a hay bale. Like right. Exactly. They're just going to be out. So, but like I said, we're going to be taking a mini break.
I understand. Yes.
Cow recovery.
I also, people are trending to smaller portion sizes too. Like, you don't need half a pound of a steak, for a meal for one human. People are yes, and I can eat a fair amount of beef, but people are, they are wanting to put a little in a small freezer. They don't have large freezers like, the bulk of the people when I was growing up. I mean, right. My would have 3 to 4 freezers in the cellar and everything was full, and one was a pig, one was a, beef animal, and then you had chickens in the other one and vegetables in the fourth, and it was everything.
This whole format's completely changing for most people because we're coming into the golden age now of people refinding farms, or like we're at the beginning of it. We're at the beginning of it where it's like people are like, oh yeah, like I think I would rather buy that cow that I drive past every day to put in my freezer rather than like, where the heck did this thing come from? Vacuum sealed at the grocery store. Like, we're
Right.
getting to that, but the infrastructure's not there yet. It's like everything else. It's all of these people need to relearn how to do all this and plan for it and get it right. Because I see it all the time on my end where it's
I-
like, I'll do 4 pigs for someone, and then all of a sudden I'll be like, "All right, yeah, I have 3 freezers of meat for you." And they're like, "What do you mean? You like what?" And I'm like, "What do you mean what? I just drove away with like 6 to 700 pounds of pork. Of
right.
course, that's a lot of like meat going back into your freezer, and it's just not there because it's like, oh, well, yeah, I'll have a lot of meat, but it'll fit in this freezer."
Right. It doesn't fit in the freezer that's on top of your refrigerator.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it does not. And again, I've had a ton of people like that too, where it's like, huh? It's like, yeah, you got it. But it's this new generation of people coming back into it, having
Mhm.
to relearn everything. So,
And I also think that people are realizing what is in the beef that they're buying. Like I have people that are celiac disease
yep.
that have had reactions to hamburger from grocery stores.
Wow.
And so they buy from me now. And it's just like they're that sensitive. So whatever happened to, come in contact with that hamburger was enough to trigger them.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I've been enjoying like the customer base now of people like buying products. And again, at this point, a lot of it's family because that's all it is. It's at the beginning. It's like those are the people you can guilt into buying whatever you're raising because they love you until you finally get a customer base. But it's like to hear the reactions where it's like I had a bunch of people buy pigs last year, and the reaction of people going that your pork was
Mhm.
not like anything I've ever tasted. I'm like, thank you. That feels fantastic. And that's why we do this. I made almost no money on any of it, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, oh my God, yes. Well, you got great feedback. Who needs money? It's so
Yeah,
overrated.
exactly. We just need positive feelings. That's what we're going to
Right,
run on.
right. We can live well on that. Oh
Exactly.
my God. But
But
yeah, I started out with I would give like gifts of here's like 5 pounds of hamburger as a gift, and that's what started people buying meat
right.
off. And
Yeah.
I don't advertise. It's all word of mouth, and I have all I can do to kind of keep the customer.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And we went from the 5 pounds to people buying quarters and wholes now.
I actually did forget about that until you just said that. I have someone who's looking for a beef, and I was like, I think might know someone.
Uh,
But no, that's huge, and it's we've talked about that before. That's the way I run my business at this point. The shop and the farm is
Yeah.
just kind of like I don't put any advertisement out besides like I'll mention it on this podcast, but the amount of people who live within my area who watch this are probably not as many as the other people who are watching it.
Right.
But yeah, it's majority word of mouth. Like the customer I had today texted me and he's like, just so you know, next year you're going to be busy because I've been talking you up to everybody and they're all
That's
coming to
great.
you. And it's like, perfect. That's what you do. That's how you advertise. Don't spend all this money on putting out posters and this, that, and the other thing. It's like, just be good at what you're selling.
Right. That positive feedback that gets you the customer base right there.
Right.
And they keep coming back. And what I've heard through like people have been buying, animals off of me for years. And when I switched to the low lines, and it was a slow progression, I bought a couple of cows, both of them had calves on them, and a bull. And then I would breed the Herefords with the low line bull and basically transition the herd to, there's some half bloods out there, and then, 3/4, 7/8, things like that. And
How did those turn out?
they actually, I like the crosses. You get a little bit more stature, but you still have that marbling and the temperament,
Right.
and they finish a little bit quicker than the full bloods. And
Because
I've,
I love Herefords. I think Herefords are amazing.
yes,
All the ones
they
I've
were
had were for crosses, and I love them.
they were a great breed for me. I just, I had one calf that weighed 110 pounds.
Oh,
So
for
I,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, and then the ligaments are all shortened, and it couldn't stand to nurse, and you're trying to do physical therapy on the foolish little thing and help it stand, and it did fine, but it was just a big bull calf, and I can't carry that around and help it stand. I mean, I did, but my back knew it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I've already been looking at that look around. I've been doing a bunch of research on like the mini Herefords and like the smaller Hereford breeds, and I'm like, they look fantastic. They look like a, like I was gonna say adult size. They're gonna be adult. They're just bigger, but like the larger statured Herefords that you regularly see today. And
Yes.
I'm like, all right, that might be interesting going into something where it's like, all right, get a couple mini Herefords, get a low line bull, and do
Yeah.
some mini Baldies and see what happens.
There you go. Right. Yeah. Yeah, that would be good. Um, and people have told me that the meat is so much more tender with the low line.
It's very tender. Like
Oh, okay.
I've noticed that a handful. Well, I haven't eaten it, but it just from a
Your
butchering
process.
perspective.
Okay.
So
So when you're cutting it up, what are you like? What are you seeing or feeling that?
just the tender, like it's most of the cuts, even the cuts that on some other animals wouldn't be as tender, or like they're like borderline. It's like, yeah, that'll eat well. On low lines, it's just like, all right, this is very tender. It's going to eat very well. It cuts very nice. Like there's some like I have two bulls hanging in my cooler that lived on a mountain. Those things are like you could flick them. And I told him out front, I'm like, hey man, just so you know. And he goes, no, they were intact bulls that live on a mountain. I know exactly what is
Right.
there. I'm like, all right, good. As long as we're on the same page.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, no. So it's I've enjoyed cutting them because it's also
Okay.
like a nice, quick, easy day for me because it's like 400 pounds or under hang weight of just to bust out of, because I do regularly 700-pound beef a day
Right.
by
Yeah.
myself. So
And that's
it's all of a sudden going through and just being able to pop the rib off the rail with one hand and bring it out to the cut table. It's like, that's kind of nice.
I know. That would be, I mean, you've got the height to deal with a larger animal, but I don't know how you do it alone. So
Yeah,
you've learned.
it's been a very interesting learning experience. Like, because again, I learned how to do it with a group of one, two, there would usually be three of us on the kill floor.
Okay.
And I wasn't always on the kill floor. Like my bosses took notice that I was very interested. Like they would usually take their lunch after us, like the guys on the cut floor.
Okay.
I would eat my lunch as fast as humanly possible and then just go and watch, like stand in the door of the slaughter floor and just
Yeah.
watch. And
Okay.
then it progressed to the point where it was like, hey, someone's out sick. You want to hop on the slaughter floor today? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Yes, for sure. Absolutely. So I was the gopher anytime somebody was sick. I'd jump on the floor, and it
Yep.
progressed to like, um, that shop was awesome. Like I owe them everything. I genuinely do.
Hmm.
But like if we went through all of our production for the week on Thursday, they'd give us Friday off and pay
Okay.
us for the day.
Wow.
There were days where it was amazing, but there were days where it's like, all right, I've only got, like, the owner would be like, I've only got 3 beef coming in, like, and I'm not going to pull all of the guys in to like work today for that. Do you want to just come in and work for the full day, and you and me will just bust out? You would usually be like 3 or 4 beef. I'd be like, absolutely. Like, you mean I get to take as much time as like a full work day to just do what I've wanted to learn how to do forever? Yes, of course. So learning that way was amazing. But also the whole time I was in my head going, all right, how am I going to make this work with me? And then going to the point where then all of a sudden I'm on my own. For the first 6 months, it was a shit show. I'm not going to lie. I appreciate all of the customers who have stayed with me from the very beginning, because it's like, I've never put down a pig. I've never put down a cow. And now I'm just doing it.
Right.
Like,
Right.
and I was lucky that I was able to kind of nudge my toe in the water while I still had a full-time job. Like, I was doing a couple pigs a month, a pig, a cow a month, or something on the side. So
Right.
it was like, all right, I'm learning as I go. And then I can go in and I can talk to my boss and be like, okay, I did this. What do you think if I did this? And was able to work it out.
Right.
But it's like anything. You just get into a rhythm of it to where it's like, all right, I know I can take a full beef from like bullet to the cooler in about an hour and a half by myself.
Yeah, that's great.
Depending on the size, like
Right.
between an hour and a half. And it's like, all right, cool. Like, but yeah, it's figuring out all the different separations and stuff to make it easier and an easier lifting, because dead weight is dead weight. There's a reason it's called that.
Definitely. And you've got also you've finessed things so that your tractor, the lifts, the
Right.
cutting, and cutting your suggestion about cutting it into eighths versus quarters. I understand that. It's like, instead of trying to wrestle with, half an animal or a
Right.
quarter of an.
Because it's you've done some of your own processing, correct?
Yes,
Like of your beef.
yes.
Yeah.
And it didn't come out as pretty as yours did, but I ate it. So hey,
Yeah,
it's fine.
exactly. And I say that to everyone. It's like, you can do this. Like, anyone can learn how to do this. It's not a hard, like, it is hard, like, to an extent. I always catch myself in that. It's like, it's not hard. It's like, dumbass, you've been doing this for a decade. Yeah, it's not
Right.
hard for you anymore. But like, for someone walking into it, or as somebody who's done it once or twice, yeah, I can absolutely see how it could be a nightmare.
But you had the ability to show me different ways, and it just seems so much easier
Right.
when you were presenting it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, I say it in all my videos, like, of whether it's a slaughter video or a cut video or whatever. I'll always put in there, I'm like, I'm not telling you this is the way to do this, because it works. I get the same result out of doing it this way. I may be taking too long with it. I may be like fudging something here and there, but it's like, this is the way that I have found to make this, to go from this product to this product in the most efficient way that I have found.
Right.
Because
And
it's
not injure yourself in the process by, wrenching your back or things like that. So,
right, because I've done that. I've also destroyed myself. I'm going to the chiropractor tomorrow. To just be like, it's a family friend of ours, and I'm just like, I called it today. I'm like, hey, can you destroy me tomorrow, please? Like,
right.
because it's for it's actually, she was one of my wife's maid of honors. She's actually
Nice.
down there right now, but it's one of those things where it's like, I always joke with her that she gets too much enjoyment out of my pain, because she's also just like, you're the only person, like, she goes, listen, I wrench on my customers. You're the only person that I can laugh at them when I wrench on them.
Right.
So but yeah, I've hurt myself a bunch. So it's like, yeah, I need to figure out a way to make this safer and easier, and also just keep myself in shape. Like, I was throwing around 120-pound hindquarters today. Like,
Yeah.
you don't do that unless you keep yourself at a certain standard of working. Like, at least
Right.
for me, Like, that's where I've done it. Of just like, I did go to the gym a bunch like years ago. I haven't stepped foot in the gym in a long time.
Oh,
But
you probably do.
I don't need to, especially
You're
when I was
doing
working
it
when I was working full time at the USDA plant, we'd break
right,
down 3.5 beef a day.
right.
That's like over 1,000 pounds. Like like I would touch over 1,000 pounds and maneuver a day.
Yes.
And it's like now I'm doing a lot less of that, and I can feel it. I can absolutely feel that I'm like I've lost some for sure, but
But
gained in others.
you're doing it alone, whereas before you would have people
Right.
helping you lift, the hind quarter or something.
Right, exactly.
Or
There's a different finesse of it.
yes.
Yeah.
Now, did you? How much did this animal weigh today?
522. So yeah, it wasn't massive, but it was
Enough.
a good size animal.
Right. So did you take it down to less than quarters?
I usually do sixths. Sixth is what I
Okay.
do unless it's like a monster. Like I have a customer that usually brings like 900-pound beef, like hang
Wow.
weight,
Yeah.
and that gets broken down into eighths. I was doing eighths all the time for a little while just because I was kind of like I was recovering from being really hurt and
Okay.
like not taking any chances. And then it was just kind of convenient because it is like just being able to toss around a whole short line and stuff like that. What I have found with that is what I've moved away from doing that is the fillets don't turn out as well as much as they don't turn out as nice. What I could do is leave the butt tender, which is like if you've ever looked at a whole fillet primal, there's like that really fat end and
Yep.
it goes down to the tail. That end is up inside the sirloin. Like,
Okay.
so it's up in that area. So when I take off the whole short loin, I would separate that out and it would just hang. But the tenderloin is already such a porous and like tender cut that that amount of airflow for even for a week, because I only hang for a week, which is
Yep.
like it's about a week less than most people hang beef, but that's also why I break it down. But just a week of having airflow on it, I'd have to trim so much of the tenderloin that it's like, like I don't love that. So
Right.
I'll just lift the hind quarter. Like
Okay. So that's why you leave the hind quarter larger. So you're taking the shoulder and then the rib area, and then
yes.
leaving the hind. Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that totally makes sense now that you explained it. I was just like, oh, why wouldn't you make it smaller so you can handle it? But no, the tenderloins are extremely important.
It's extremely important. Yeah. And it's figuring out what ergonomically is best too. Cause it's like for a long time I did just do quarters and it was
Okay.
fine. But I
Yeah.
also found that it's like, yeah, like the rib end of the chuck wouldn't always be as like firmed up as I'd like
Okay.
or whatever. Um, but being able to like, all right, what's your heavy part? It's going to be your chuck. Like that's going to be heavy. But if you leave the shoulder and that brisket on, it's going to counterweight it enough that it's going to hang right in the cooler. And it's only going to be, depending on the size of the animal, about 100 pounds. I can
Right.
I can throw around 100 pounds pretty easily at this point. I'm not worried about that. Get to the rib, it's just big and awkward. Like it's not a
Yeah.
matter of weight. It's a plate that's this big with an uneven end because you have the whole loin on one side and just like some belly on the other. So
Right.
it's finding the right size on that and being able to toss that up and out of the way. And then again, getting into the hind quarter where it's, yeah, you could break it down in half and just do a whole short loin, which is again, that's a bit of a mess when you tear it off as is because you're not just tearing off short loin, you're tearing off the flap and the flank, which
Okay.
is exactly as it sounds, just a big old flap. So
Right.
it's like it doesn't hang right. When you
Hmm.
get to processing, you're not able to pull certain membranes that are super easy when it's whole. So
Okay.
it slows you down in the end too, where it's all right, like this is just at the point where it's not helping me anymore. It's almost more of a hindrance.
Right.
So
How long did it take you to figure that out?
I still haven't figured out anything yet. I say that to everyone. I'm like, I don't know how I'm this successful at this point. Like, I don't even know if I can say I'm successful, but it's like, I don't know how I'm here, but it seems to be going well because I change stuff up constantly, like
Mhm.
absolutely all over the place. And it'll be like one of those random, like, fever dreams where I'm just like, I wake up and I'm like, why have I not done this way? Like, what? Because it's at this point, it's all I think about, like farming and butchering. It's it. That's the whole game. Like, I don't think about anything else. So I will just have those random moments during the day where I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, like my biggest one recently. It's not recently. It's been about a couple months or so. Has been with doing pigs,
Okay.
and for the longest time, I'd have a hard time getting them off the hooks in the cooler and maneuvering them and trying to figure out everything going on with that. And I've moved to buying like a bunch of polywire, like or polycord, and
Okay.
just tying a loop in the tendons and hanging everything from the tendons. They're like
Hmm.
hanging everything from the rope, like off the beams, because it's 1,000 times easier for me to actually grab a hold of the rope and get a handle,
Right.
or grab the rope, push up on the hook, and be able to have an anchor there to maneuver everything around. And also slaughtering wise, it's easier because I'm still doing everything under the bucket. So it's having that extra 6 inches of room to
Right.
maneuver under the bucket is a game changer. Like, so it's just those little things that it's like I never would have thought of that until I did think of it.
Yeah. And it works well.
Right. But yeah, like I said, I might not be everyone's method, but on my method, and I've been getting a lot of decent feedback on my method. So I guess I'm doing all right.
I think you are, definitely.
Perfect.
Yeah. When you took the chuck off of my animal and
Mhm.
hung it, it had the hook in up into the rib area, just so that you could cut it free and it just swung
Well, and
instead of trying
that's
to.
an evolution. That's an evolution of me just doing it solo.
Yes.
Because for the longest time, I would cut one side, go on the outside of the animal, get a meat hook,
Right.
and hook into it with as much weight as I could, and then bring the sawzall around over
Yeah.
here and cut the brisket by myself.
Right.
So it's like that's just an evolution of me not trying to die
It-
anymore.
yeah. The accident waiting to happen right
Of
there.
course. And it's happened. It happened a couple times where all of a sudden there would just be a chuck on the ground because it would be like, well, all right, yeah, that fell. Of course it did. I only had one hand on it, and it went from no weight to 120 pounds on one arm. Your
Right.
non-dominant arm, like
Right. Because your dominant has the sawzall. Because you're
right?
trying.
Because I'm like, I don't want to kill myself with this sawzall. I don't want to
Right.
be an idiot. But
Uh,
a lot of
necessity.
that just comes from
of-
being a butcher too, and just being nuts. So we're a special breed.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, I'm glad you're so close to me. I can come over and, torture
Yeah, of
you with,
course.
show me how to do this, show me how to do that.
And I'm super open about that, and I love to do it. I mean, that's why I have this podcast and the channel now and stuff like that. Where I'm starting to get into the realm of like doing demonstrations and stuff like that. Like I've got my first one coming up next month at Self Reliance Festival. If you haven't bought your tickets, buy them now.
Wow.
But no, I love showing everyone. I always leave that open to all of my customers. It's like if you want to see how this is done, you're more than welcome to stay. I am full transparency. Like I'm confident in my methods.
Hmm.
Watch me do it. Like, and if you're interested, like pay attention. Like ask questions. I'll answer them.
Yeah. No, it was excellent. I'm very happy I did it, and I look forward to doing it again, you know.
Yeah. But no, absolutely. Yeah. Cause I think I have you down for next month. Or no. Is it next month or the month after you're coming over?
End of October.
End of October. That's right.
Yep. Yep. That one's going to be a bigger animal.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. That's a Charolais Low Line cross.
Oh, okay. I do
Yeah.
like the Charolais. I think I did. Sue had a couple Charolais, right?
She did, yes. She ended up getting them from the farm that this one had come from initially too. So they're probably distantly related. But this is an older cow that's coming up lame. You know, I've had her hooves trimmed many years, and you know, now it's just too far. You know.
Yeah, well, it gets to a point, and it's like those are the things you learn doing this for a long time. Is like there is just times where it's like, I love this animal, it's great, but also I'm trying to run a somewhat functional farm business, and you don't fit into the cards anymore. You don't fit into the budget.
Right. Yeah, I've been having a lot of coyote issues, and you know, she's not a fast runner anymore. So, and she has a calf with, so I'm sure the coyotes wouldn't really bother her, but they'd take the calf, you know.
Right, and it's you don't want to see that.
No, no. So, you know, she'll come and visit you at the end of October.
Perfect.
Look at you, all excited.
Yeah, no, it's it at one point today while we were loading the bull into the back of my truck with a backhoe, the owner's like, I really appreciate you coming up here, like, and doing this. And I was like, yeah, I love this shit. Like, I don't just do this because, like, my dream isn't to be an accountant and I'm just stuck in this life of slaughtering animals. Like, I've been on this path for a little while. And if I wasn't here, I'd be home watching Peppa Pig. So, yes, I would rather be here doing this.
Oh my God, I was at Home Depot, let's see, night before last, and I was buying some rigid insulation for making my walk-in cooler. And the guy was, you know, helping me, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, this piece is damaged. He's like, but it's the last one we have. And I'm like, I really don't care what it looks like because it's for a walk-in cooler. He got so excited. He was so happy because he's from the reservation up north, tribal lands, and he, you know, was just, it's great that you're trying to be self-sufficient. So he gave me a discount because that piece was damaged and I was fine taking it.
That's awesome. And it's there is like I said earlier in this, there is a growing group of people that it's like, yeah, I don't like it. And when you find those people that have been in it for a while and they look at the new people and they're like, oh, hell yeah. No, I'll give you a hand and like show you this, that, and the other thing on this because this isn't easy to get into. This is a very, very hard venture to get into and figure it all out. Yeah. My personal favorite is, man, with raising your own animals, you must be saving so much money. That one will forever be my favorite.
Right. And farmers make so much money too, right?
Oh, we're rolling in it. We are rolling in that debt.
That's for sure.
There's another podcast, the Pasture Pig podcast. The host of that one's been on here before too. He always says, and I am the example of this, that behind every good farmer is a spouse in the medical field.
Yes.
I was like, yeah, you nailed it.
Well, I'm doing both because
exactly. Yeah, you're doing both. But it's like, oh yeah, no, that is 100% accurate because there's no other profession that the spouse could be that you'd be able to supplement your income that much on a farm.
Right. Oh, yes.
I guess I'm working nights for 6 months for that shift differential.
Right. Oh my God.
I got the lingo. I got it.
God. Yeah, and your wife was saying that she's on the Baylor plan.
Yes. So she is down at Exeter for the weekends
Every
to
yeah,
do her shifts. But it's again
it's
like there is so many nice things about, obviously there is very decent pay being in the medical field, but also there is flexibility in the scheduling to where it's like
exact
my wife my wife works Saturday, Sunday, and then some random day during the week. Usually it's either Wednesday or Friday. So I'm able to, because our oldest is about to go to preschool, which is terrifying. But it's like we have two kids at home, so it's one of us has to be with them,
right.
and to figure it out and portion it out with her working 3 days a week and making what I made like for a full 40-hour week at a slaughterhouse. Yeah, it's helpful to, especially now where I'm full time on the farm and on the
Yep.
butcher shop, and we're figuring it out, but it's nice to have it to where it's like, hey, I'm going to pick up an overtime shift. Like, you sure are. I got 2 pigs canceled this week.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's great because job security for her. I mean, there's always the openings. And for you, this emergency call today too, to,
Yeah.
butcher a pig, the beef, not the pig, the beef. Yeah. So the flexibility, if she's
Yeah,
flexible, going to work, flexible, it comes around.
it sure does. So, yeah, it's all a joy. So, what are some future things you want to implement in your program, or is there a different breed you want to look at, or just kind of what are your plans for the future of it?
So I ended up getting a new bull this year. I actually was leasing him for the summer. Um, really like him and will probably purchase him over the next couple of weeks. Um, 3/4 low line, um, you know, basically black with a white face, the panda eyes,
Yeah.
uh, and again, a very mellow bull. Do I trust bulls? No, but he's very mellow, and I probably will stay with the same, but stay at maybe 3/4 crosses. I
Right.
like just a little bit bigger. I'm expanding some of the hay fields right now, probably in another 2 years. I'm doing roughly 18 acres. I've already got 12 acres seeded. So that's taken me
Nice.
2 years so far. So it was a wood lot that was abutting my property, and I, purchased 50 acres. And I'm working with the Farmland Trust. Right now, the bulk of my land is already in the Farmland Trust, and then the 50 acres will come in next spring. So
Nice.
once that's producing grass. So that way, it'll be there for the future, I guess, and
That's awesome.
yeah, yeah. And by doing this, by getting another hay field close to home, I don't have to rely on other people's property to hay. So I
Right.
won't leaving my own property, which is nice. I mean, it's to the point now, the roads are getting so much busier. I mean, I was just driving to Limerick, maybe say 6 miles away, but it would take me roughly, 45 minutes to an hour with a tractor
Oh
and a piece
yeah.
of equipment. And it's dangerous on the road now with a agricultural, you know,
It's not
vehicle and
the world we're in is not designed for it,
no,
unfortunately.
no.
And no one
So
cares.
this way I'll stay on my own property and just, Oh, and I'm going to retire from nursing next June. So,
Congratulations. That's awesome.
yeah, and I will retire to the farm and continue farming.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I
Now,
think I may downsize the herd just a touch with your help, of course.
of
Uh,
course. Yeah, of course.
I don't be having, 14 calves a year. Like 7
That's a
calves.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
7
lot.
would be, yeah. I don't need that many animals. So I think I'll slowly, by another year, I'll be down to 7 breeding cows, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, it's it's a nice thing where you are it's how do I put this? There is a point where it's like there is something that's somewhat overwhelming, but then there's also a point where it's like, all right, it is kind of nice that I'm like, no, I'm gonna downsize. It's
Yeah,
like I know I could probably sustain this and keep it going, but I could also just kind of coast and be pretty good with what we have.
yeah. And, you know, it's the unfortunate thing is that, you know, in some of the heifers, I see traits that I want to keep that line, that lineage going along. And, you know, you cannot keep them all. I
No.
need to learn that and listen to it and practice it.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, a few replacement heifers here and there, but I need to let a few of the animals go.
Yeah. Well, it's
And
like we're looking at that coming into next year because I need to find a boar still to
mm,
breed my sow to, and she's a absolute sweetheart, and I love that thing to death. Like, I probably will never put her in a cooler. Like, I'll probably sell her or trade her. Like, to
right.
be honest, like butcher with a heart of gold, I guess. But it's one of those things where my wife's like, that pig's never leaving the farm, and I'm like, okay, let's think about this to where we have a boar that we saved from her first litter because it
Yeah.
holds all the genetics that I want. Like, it is exactly what we bred for everything. So that's the one I kept to rebreed back in. So they'll be 3/4 Hereford, eighth Osbot, eighth Mangalitsa. Like,
Okay.
to again, like, still kind of keep the growth rate up, but also hopefully have a little bit more lard and have like just some of the better traits that you get from those like more heritage breed species.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm not breeding them back to mom, and I'm getting two or three gilts next spring to raise with whatever litter she has in the spring
Right.
to keep as my breeders. So I'm not gonna just keep her in a pen by herself and bring a boar around every now and then to do that. I love her to death, and again, I probably will never put a bullet in her unless whoever goes to sell, like whoever I sell her to, is like, all right, now she's a burden to us, and we're gonna put her in the cooler, like in that situation. But it's like you got to figure out what's going to work for you because at the end of the day, you can't keep them all
No.
because they are amazing. Like, they're animals and we love them, but there's a purpose to what you're doing with it. If you're
Right.
a hobby farm and it doesn't matter, all the power to you. But some of us trying to make money on this, try to feed our families.
Yeah. The hobby farms can get very costly, and I
Oh,
don't have that money to lay out on that, you
it
know.
it blows my mind when I get into some of these people's hobby farms where it's like just in person, or
Mhm.
it's like if I'm just scrolling on YouTube and I just see it's like, we just bought 17 more goats. And I'm like, why? Why? Tell me why you did this
Right.
to make your life hell? Like,
Because
or
every one of those goats is analyzing the fence as we speak and planning their exit.
yeah. I follow a guy on TikTok that has bought, in the time I followed him, he's bought 16 or 17 Highland cows.
Okay.
And I'm like, why? Why did you do this? Like, do you want hell? Like, is this what you want brought upon you in life? Like, that is a crazy amount to take on all at once, and the breed.
Yeah. I'm very happy with polled animals that have no horn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I say that every cow I've ever had has had horns.
Well, but, you know, like all it takes is them swinging their head to like
Oh, of
try,
course.
and you know, you're like bumped in the head with a horn, you know, or
Still
yeah.
my, like, it's a tie for me. So for people who, like, are listening and don't know, like, if they're just getting into this kind of thing for the first time, it's a lot like dogs. Every breed of cow has a very different temperament, like,
Mhm.
on how you handle them and, like, how they handle you.
Right.
And it's my two hated breeds are Highlands
Mhm.
and Belted Galloways. I almost take a deposit on Belted Galloways before I even show up, like, because
Yeah.
I hate them so much. There is something about them. They are the devil cow, and I hate them.
I have a Beltie without the belt,
Oh, that's
and
right. You told me that. You told me that. You're like, oh yeah, and I think I even said that to you. I'm like, oh god.
right. So the interesting thing is that she's been on the docket to go to the butcher for 3 or 4 years now. And the first butcher burnt to the ground. And
Yeah.
then the next butcher burnt to the ground. And then last year I couldn't get any dates. So still she lives on. And so maybe you don't want her coming to you.
Yeah. 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 Well, yeah. We'll make sure we're in the middle of the field for that one.
Right.
Let me ask you, how's her temperament?
Yeah. So we're, we're we're down to maybe a week to 10 days after she calves, where that's about the time she wants to kill me. When I first got her, it was a full month that
Yeah.
she would try to kill me after she had a calf.
I'll tell. I think I've told this story before on. I don't know if it's been on this podcast, but I have told it before. But it's one of my scariest slaughters of all time was a stunted 4-year-old Belted Galloway. So it
Okay.
was short, very short, but I think it dressed at like over 7. Like it was huge,
Yeah.
but it was just a monster. It had broken through every fence, every gate, everything to the point to where I pulled up to the farm. It was in the corral right in front of the barn where it's like 8-foot like poles for
Yes.
fencing. And I'm like, oh boy. And I was still fairly new. I was still working like full time at the USDA facility. And I was like, okay, let's do this. And I had the 410 out and I put one, dropped it, and I went down and I went, all right, good. And I like was about to jump over the fence and the thing just stood up and like
Yeah.
looked at me. And
Yeah.
it was in February. So it was like 15 degrees out and you can just see the steam coming out of the bullet hole. And
Right.
I remember the customer behind me and she goes, "Oh good, she is possessed. I'm glad I know the answer to that now because she's had
Oh my,
nothing but problems with the thing."
right. Well, my
And
cow's name is A1. How appropriate,
yeah,
And
exactly.
so I had a couple of people helping me using corral panels to try to get her and the calf into the calving pen, because I let her calve wherever she wants to calve.
Right, deal with it after the fact.
Right. And then I try to slowly maneuver them where I want them. And she didn't get the memo that she only has one set of teeth and a hard palate. And she was coming at these two other people, mouth wide open, trying to
Oh,
bite them.
nope.
It's
Nope.
just like, what are you doing?
Nope.
But
Yeah, I don't like
I,
that. I don't like that one bit.
I look back now and laugh about it. But
Can't
during,
wait.
it was a little stressful for them because they don't really come around to help me anymore now. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know, no idea why. Yeah,
Right.
it gets interesting. It really does. I've had a handful of people help, and I've helped a handful of people where it's like I actually had a couple pigs. A friend of mine had some pigs. I was helping him pull piglets that he sold, and he had one sow that just hated me
Yeah.
from the
Push the,
second I met her.
yeah.
Would come
You
at me
were
through the fence.
stealing. You were stealing her piglets.
No. Not
Oh.
even that. Like from the first time I
Oh.
laid eyes on this pig, would
Mhm.
come at me through the fence. And it was
Wow.
he had made it all out of oak trees and
Yeah.
like friggin' cattle panels. There was no way it was getting out, but it's still like, I hate this. I hate this so much. And he's like, I need you in here. It was two sows and like 6 piglets.
Yeah.
And he was like, I need you in here to like just do something. Like I need like it to push piglets or whatever. And I walked all the way around because she was looking at him. it wasn't her piglet, so she really didn't care.
Right.
Walked all the way around and jumped in the back of the pen. The second my feet hit the ground, she turned and mouth open, just full at me. And I had to, like, whatever they're doing, like with matadors now, where it's just parkour on bulls. I essentially had to do that on the back of the sow. And I did not stop. My second my feet hit the ground, I just ran right past her, over the top of her, and out the other side. And I was like, good luck. Have fun with that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but so perfect. Is there anything you want to promote? Like anything for the farm or anything?
No, I mean, I'm pretty happy with the way things are going right now. I mean, it's Trellis Brook Farm, but, and I'm in Newfield, but no, life is good. I wouldn't change a
Okay,
thing.
perfect. Well, I appreciate you
Kyle,
coming on for sure.
it's been a pleasure, Kyle. Thank you so much.
No, absolutely. And so if everyone's listening, you can find me. Obviously, you can find this podcast on YouTube because that's where you're watching me now. And after the fact, if you're not listening live, which I appreciate whoever was in here live, I think we're up to about 8 at one point. You can find this podcast on Spotify, Apple. I completely forget the Google Podcast one, but you can find me there. You can also find me on Fountain. And yeah, make sure you like, subscribe. We're getting into deer season, so I just put out my first deer video formally. So we're getting into doing a lot more stuff like that. So yeah, but Denise, I appreciate you coming on, and we will catch you next time.
Sounds great. Thank you.